You've probably heard this tip, right? When electricity prices shoot up, just turn off your heat pump. Sounds smart, but what if I told you that little trick could actually be costing you more? That's what we're digging into in this explainer.
Okay, so let's start with the basic idea. The price of electricity is through the roof. So you turn off your heat pump. Simple, right? It feels like the most obvious, common sense thing to do to save a few bucks.
But here's the thing. Your heat pump has no idea what the price of electricity is. It doesn't operate on market logic. Nope. It operates on the laws of physics. And we're going to break down the numbers and the science to show you exactly why that smart move can leave you colder and, believe it or not, with a higher bill.
All right, Section 1, Physics is price blind. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to start with one fundamental, non-negotiable concept: heat loss. Seriously, everything else builds on this.
So, what is heat loss? It's just the constant flow of energy from inside your warm house to the cold outside. In our example home, when it's 0 degrees Celsius out, it's losing about 3,500 watts of heat. Constantly. And this is key. That heat doesn't stop escaping just because the price of electricity is high. It's just physics.
Okay, so how do we even know if a heat pump is any good? Well, we use something called the COP, or coefficient of performance. The best way to think about it is like miles per gallon for your car. A higher COP is better. It just means you're getting way more heat out for every single watt of electricity you put in. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the real-world impact. To fight that constant 3,500 watt heat loss, a super efficient heat pump with a COP of 4 only needs about 875 watts of power. But if that efficiency drops by just 25%, down to a COP of 3, the power needed jumps by over a third. You're suddenly using way more electricity to do the exact same job. This is going to be really important later.
Okay, Section 2, 2 scenarios, 2 costs. Let's put this all into practice and see what happens in our example home.
First, let's look at Scenario 1, what we'll call the steady state. For this, we're going to do absolutely nothing. We're just going to let the heat pump run continuously for 3 hours, even during that expensive period, just keeping the house at a nice, stable temperature.
And you know what? When you do this, everything is great. The system is stable, it's just ticking along, barely breaking a sweat. It can use a low supply temperature for the water, which means its COP stays super high, around 4. Everything is running at peak efficiency, and you stay perfectly comfortable the whole time.
So what's the cost? Well, even with that high price of 75 cents per kilowatt hour, running it for 3 hours costs just under €2, €1.97. Lock that number in your brain.
All right, now for Scenario 2, the smart switch. This is where we try that popular life hack. We're going to turn the heat pump completely off for those same 3 hours to dodge that high price.
And doing this creates what is, without a doubt, the most important concept we're going to talk about: heat debt. Think about it. You stop putting heat into the house, but the house never stopped losing heat to the outside. You've basically created an energy deficit. And just like a credit card bill, that debt has to be repaid. And this isn't some vague idea, it's a hard number. A calculated physical debt. Over those 3 hours, our house lost exactly 37.8 megajoules of energy. That energy has physically left the building, and if you want to be warm again, you have to replace every single joule of it. So, what does that 37.8 megajoule debt actually feel like? Well, it feels cold. Simple as that. For our house, that lost energy means the indoor temperature drops by 1.5 degrees Celsius. You're now sitting in a room that's 18.5 degrees. That's not comfortable.
Okay, Section 3, the true cost of restarting. Now the expensive period is over, and it's time to pay back that heat debt. This is where the real costs, the hidden ones, start to pop up.
Think about what the heat pump is facing when it kicks back on. The house is cold. The water sitting in your radiators or underfloor heating is cold. The buffer tank is cold. The whole system is starting from a massive disadvantage. So, to catch up, the pump can't just gently cruise like it was before. No way. It has to slam into overdrive. It's got to pump out much, much hotter water to get the house back up to temperature quickly. And what did we learn about physics? Higher water temperature always means a lower COP. It's a fundamental rule. So your machine becomes way less efficient right at the moment you're asking it to work its absolute hardest. So how much does this recovery cost? Well, it takes about 4.2 hours of running flat out. And even though the electricity price is now way cheaper, only 25 cents per kilowatt hour, the total cost to pay back that debt is €2.52.
So let's put it all side by side. The smart strategy ended up costing more, $2.52 versus $1.97. You were less comfortable sitting in a colder house. The system ran way less efficiently overall. And to top it all off, you created this massive spike in electricity demand, which is the last thing the power grid wants. In every single metric, we lost.
Okay, Section 4, the exception to the rule. So does this mean turning your heat pump off is always a bad idea? Well, not quite. There are some specific cases where it can actually work.
So, for this to actually save you money, your house needs a few special features. The big one is high thermal mass. We're talking about things like thick concrete floors that hold on to heat for a very long time. They basically act like a giant slow-release heat battery. If you have that, plus a low-temp system like underfloor heating, and a modern heat pump that can modulate its power gently, then yeah, you might save some money.
All right, Section 5, the real smart approach. So after all that, what's the big takeaway here? What's the really smart way to think about this?
Look, the bottom line is that trying to play the market with your heat pump isn't a silver bullet. It only really works for very specific types of homes. For most houses, especially lighter ones, it can actually cost you more. Because remember, you're not saving energy, you're just shifting when you use it. That heat debt always has to be paid back. The only question is how efficiently you're going to do it.
Which brings us to this. Smart heat pump control doesn't start with the electricity price. It starts with the thermal properties of your home. So before you rush to turn things off to time the market, ask yourself a simple question. Is my house a thermal battery? If the answer is no, then the smartest, most efficient, and often cheapest thing you can do is just let it run. Always remember, physics comes first. The market comes a distant second.